Check out the news today. Hong Kong has denied entry to a representative from RSF, a group which apparently creates independent press freedom indexes. Shocking stuff. But I'll tell you something really important about this, and it will change how you see this story. Now, old school reporters, not just me, but many of us, tend to avoid quoting RSF. In fact, journalists of my generation rarely quote it or even mention it. Why is that? Now, this is an almost totally unknown story in these days, but it's a pretty shocking story. Here are 8 things you're not being told about the world's loudest press freedom index group, known as RSF or RWB, Reporters Without Borders, depending on whether you use the French initials or the English initials. Number 1, in the early 2000s, working journalists noted that RSF had an obsession with the top countries on the US adversaries list. RSF constantly attacked China, Russia, Cuba, and so on. Strange coincidence. This became so blatant that journalists started to ask questions about the organisation. Number 2, as we did so, another puzzle emerged. The RSF was too rich. It was supposed to be run by a group of reporters in Paris. Now, journalists tend to be underpaid. And truth be told, we are known for being ungenerous in sharing cash. So where did the money come from? When asked, RSF staff flatly denied that it had US backing. It claimed that the money came from book sales. That excuse just didn't wash. Journalists worked out it would have to sell hundreds of thousands of volumes to finance itself that way. An attempt to go to the RWB website to order any of their publications found no link to any purchasing information, nor any price listings or book summary. Very curious indeed. Number 3, eventually in 2006, a Freedom of Information request revealed the truth. It was primarily funded by US organizations strictly linked to US foreign policy. The list included the National Endowment for Democracy, that US group set up to take over the international political interference work that had been done by the CIA. Also in the shadows, handing money to the RSF, was anti-China campaigner George Soros and the infamous USAID, yes, and several others of the same ilk. Now that changed everything. Number 4, a French journalist and writer named Maxime Vivas wrote an entire book about how the RSF was not a journalistic organisation at all, really, but a CIA-backed political body. He described RSF as a lumbering plane with a golden propeller that drops heavy bombs on small nations that refuse to submit. And big ones too. Number 5, in 2008, China prepared to welcome the world to the Beijing Olympics. RFS revealed that it had been running an 8-year project to make Beijing look bad. In March of that year, 3 Reporters Without Borders representatives, including the RSF Secretary General Robert Menard, went to the torch lighting ceremony in Greece and unfurled banners showing the Olympic rings transformed into handcuffs. They weren't just reporting the Olympics, they were actively trying to spoil it. Now again, real journalists were very uncomfortable about this. This is not what journalists did. It was just politics. Number 6, in 2010, investigative journalist William Engdahl started looking at anti-journalist people who were not criticised by the RSF. He wrote, "One might ask why names of such world-class enemies of free speech and press freedom as Georgia's dictator, that's President Mikhail Saakashvili, or the former Ukraine president Viktor Yushchenko, or the recently deposed dictator of Kyrgyzstan, Bakayev, are absent." But Engdahl knew why the RSF didn't criticise these people. All 3 came to power in Washington-backed coups, also termed colour revolutions. In other words, just like the NED was not really about democracy at all, so the RSF was not really about journalism at all. Both groups were focused on interference that advanced US interests. That's important, remember that. Engdahl also noted that the group was printing names of enemies of free speech, which he called the Predators List. Notably, all the persons just named by RWB as predators have been targets of Washington-financed destabilization attempts in recent years. Well, what a coincidence. Now, I could make this report into a book-length piece with lots and lots of examples. There are so many, but I'm going to keep it short. I'm going to jump to modern days. Number 7. In recent years, RSF in Asia has chosen to focus on, yes, Taiwan. Taiwan, of course, has been identified by the US as a key tool in its plan to interfere with the peaceful rise of China. Now, here's a funny example. The Taiwanese authorities are not good at press freedom. They flatly refused to renew the broadcast license of CTI after this TV channel backed the maintenance of a peaceful and positive relationship between the island province and the mainland. RFS had to comment. Guess what they said? They defended the move. RFS said the decision did not violate press freedom. Here's RSF's headline on the matter. RSF gave Taiwan a high place on its press freedom index. Number 8. At the same time, RSF pushed Hong Kong way down the press freedom chart, following the completely fake allegation that there's no longer any free speech in this city. Despite that, you can literally pick up a newspaper or surf to a website in a matter of seconds in Hong Kong to find lively and energetic criticism of the government here. To sum up, the Western mainstream media is pushing a completely false narrative about mainland China, about Hong Kong, about Taiwan, and RSF's job is to feed the false narrative. It's a pro-Western, anti-Chinese political body. Hong Kong people are smart. We know this. We do our research, and that's why Hong Kong did not let RSF enter. And that's also why old school journalists rarely quote RSF or its indexes. We know the truth, and now you do too. Peace.